In this video, I want to talk a little bit more about knitting looms, and what I'm doing is I have this bedroll pattern that I've talked about with, here's the bedroll, and I'm making a bed pad for it on the Authentic Knitting Board 38-inch loom. The vintage one is what I have. And I'm also trying to come up with a pattern for people to be able to make their own bedrolls without having a weaving loom at all, if possible. And there are several options, and believe it or not, I have most of the equipment anybody could ever have. This was woven on a 3-foot wide backstrap loom, which is very easy to make out of dowels, and that's one option. Then we have Authentic Knitting Board knitting boards. Now this one, actually, the 38-inch board, and that's spring water under there. It would be about 36 inches wide, the knitted piece. If you made 3 pieces, double knit, all 3 of them, would take a ton of yarn, but that could be a bedroll. You could make one piece for the mat to sleep on with an extra bed pad on top of that, and then one would be a very thick blanket or afghan. And the advantage to this is that you can make it as long as you are tall. So that's one option. But, you know, I've been looking, and I can't find any of these. Usually the vintage ones are on sale on eBay. I don't see any of them. And there used to be 2 or 3 other people that made 36, 38-inch wide knitting boards, and they're not on there now either. I don't know why. So the only one on there is the new updated 38-inch wide Authentic Knitting Board. That's at both eBay and Etsy. You know, and retailers are only going to have what's new anyway. But anyway, these are the Boye brand, B-O-Y-E, knitting looms. Now these are very economical. You can buy a box of 4 rectangular looms like this for about $21, $25, and a box of 4 round looms for another, usually those are like, sometimes you can get them for 18 or 19, but about the same. But anyway, if you were going to use a Boye loom like this one and do the same mat or bed pad section that I'm working on with the vintage loom, this is their longest 22-inch orange loom, and they consider it extra long. Now I have it set up as, it's not the flat stitch, but it's flat knitting. It's not connected in the round, and I'm going back and forth. And that will give me, if each side is 22 inches long, and that would be 44 inches, ideally, except the yarn is going to shrink in a little bit, I might end up with like a 40-inch wide panel. So there is an economical solution to having a big heavy knitting board, is the Boye 22-inch loom. And like I said, you just start here with the peg and knit flat around this way. I'm using the E-wrap stitch on this. And what it won't be is as thick as this fabric. But it does make a very nice fabric, a very nice knitted fabric. So that's one option that I'm exploring. And then also on this same loom, this is a pillowcase. And the pillowcase is almost the same width of the loom. So if you were to knit in the round on this, you could also make a pillowcase section or a bag. But what I would use it for is a pillowcase section. And what we're really talking about with making a bedroll, if you're not going to use 3-foot wide looms, is sectional knitting, which is similar to what I've been doing with some of the weaving and landscape design, but a little bit different. Now, of course, the easiest and least expensive way to do this is a potholder loom. And you just keep making 6-inch squares on a potholder loom, and which is about $10 at the most. You use whatever the cheapest yarn is you could find, and you can make as many squares as you can make, and then all you're doing is laying out rectangles or sweaters. You can make sweaters with potholder squares. You can make almost anything except a knitted round hat that'll be stretchy, and socks. So that's another option. And I'm doing this because I'm trying to come up with one simple pattern that, if other than my other patterns with all these different equipment things, one simple pattern where if you had to make your own bedroll, for example, right now I'm leaning with the potholder loom, because all you have to do is make squares and then sew them together. The drawback with that is that potholder squares are fairly thin, even in bulky weight. So I'm trying to come to a balance of a comfortable set of blankets or bedroll, and yet economy in the knitting. And my biggest problem right now is finding yarn donations for like the poor or the homeless. I mean, if you could give a homeless family a potholder loom and they could make 6 bedrolls, then wouldn't that be wonderful? Except where are they going to get the yarn? So this is kind of a long-term project I'm working on, and trying to come up with a solution, really, for so many more people are becoming homeless than just immigrants or mentally ill people that just can't pay the rent or something. I mean, and then, I haven't even gotten to the veterans yet. So it's becoming a bigger problem. And so I'm thinking if I can come up with a very simple, inexpensive way that somebody can make a bedroll. LA is doing homeless sweeps, where they come in, they tape off a homeless camp, plow everything into a dump truck, and the people lose everything. Then they just tell the people to disperse. And if the people are lucky, they can get on a bus that they have to pay for, a public bus, go to the landfill recycling center, and go through that whole big dump truck load tarp thing of clothing and items and see if they can find their stuff again. And cities are having to do this. So that's kind of ridiculous that anybody's going to find their stuff again. So a potholder loom, you could go to a Walmart and scrape together, say, $6 and get a potholder loom and make all your own stuff again. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, but I know that there are impracticalities in what I'm trying to do. But I wanted to mention the Boye knitting looms because I have sets that go from a spool knitter, a flower loom, the 4 round looms, and then the 4 rectangular looms. And basically with those 10 looms, with those 10 looms you should be able to make anything, including socks and hats. So these are just a few options that I'm looking at, and from my perspective, I'm looking at a bedroll or blanket simply because of quotes for veterans. But it also may be like a household item that, gee, you might want a set of these looms in the house, or you might want to have a potholder loom. What if there's a hurricane, you have to go to a shelter, and wow, there's a bag of yarn in the high school. You never know. So I'm working on different options, and I wanted to mention the Boye looms, and that the large orange loom, for now, could at least make a flat knitted mat or a pillowcase. But when I get this done, I'll be writing up an actual pattern with whatever loom set I end up picking out.